What's up, guys? Zeenigami here, and let's go through the 7 Catastrophes Awakened Lillia raid event on the global version of 7 Deadly Sins. There are 3 different versions of this Lillia fight, red, green, and blue. They're basically the exact same thing, except with a different color. On that screen you saw there were 3 different stages that you could select. You're going to do a boss battle. It's basically exactly the same as any of the boss battles you would have done to get to a raid boss normally, but with different characters on it. You can use whatever team you're using to farm the boss battles to farm these as well. Using teams with AoE, Hauser, that sort of thing does great. Hauser, Blue Demon Melee takes out most of these stages without a problem. But here we want to talk about the Awakened Lillia fights. We're going to go over the green one first. Has a few things we're looking out for. First, she takes increased damage from attacks that increase ult move gauge. So Lostvayne Meliodas' attack, Green Escanor's attack, both of these are increased by 50% against her, which is really nice. She also is going to deal additional damage to goddesses, so watch out if you're using Elizabeth. Elizabeth is going to take significantly more damage and might die a lot earlier than expected. And she's also going to take more damage from unknown race characters. So if you have your Gowther, it's going to take a little bit more damage, but not too many other unknown race characters that we're going to be using against her. This attack right here, the Burst Out, decreases all attack by 20%, disables buff and debuff skills, is going to apply a ton of debuffs for your team, and you're going to need to get rid of it somehow. Either by using Red Arthur to give yourself debuff immunity, or someone like Blue King in order to cleanse off your debuffs, because for every debuff you have in your team, her base stats increase by 3%. And whenever your entire team has like 30 debuffs on her, her stats basically double. It gets really, really insane really fast. So you're going to go from taking a little bit of damage to dying in a single attack if you let her apply a ton of debuffs to you. And she's going to do this every 2 turns. So you're going to want to have a cleanse or level 3 ult by the time we get to that place. You cannot debuff Lillia at all, immune to all debuffs, and her ult is a weak point attack, so be very careful once again to avoid those debuffs. Phase 2, mostly the same, except now she has a stance that decreases damage taken and has a counter to her, and also her ult now hits all enemies. So the phase 2 ult is very likely to straight up kill you, and remember that the stance that she applies is going to decrease damage taken and also hit you with that big ol' counter. So like many different raid bosses, we're going to get through phase 1, keep a few ultimates for phase 2, and then ult and kill phase 2 within the first turn, maybe the second turn, before she enters that stance. If Lilia enters that stance, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you can't kill her if her health is too high. So I'm going to get our boy El Chato in here. Welcome, welcome El Chato. I'm also going to swap from Escanor to Lostvayne, because I've pulled Lostvayne now. Note that this also is not a raid, so we're going to be using not Kayn, because Kayn's passive should not be active on this fight. So instead we're going to use Red Jericho for the 10% offensive stats to red characters. And I totally forgot to move gear over, so I'm going to move gear from Escanor onto my Lostvayne and pretend like it was always like that. Also, just in general, if you're doing these raid bosses, eat some gold food. It gives you a lot of gold for these fights, so a nice little bit of gold food is always excellent. Alright, El Chow's also bringing the same team. He's got his Gowther on the right side. I've got my Gowther on the right side, so I'm going to move Gowthers. If you don't know about this little trick, the reason that you don't want your Gowthers in the same spot is that you and your teammate are always going to be dealt the same hand based off of positions. I need to make an entire video about why you don't want to have your Gowthers specifically in the same spot, and it's mostly if you don't have your Gowthers in the same spot. TLDR, you have a higher chance of rank up on that first turn. After the first turn, positions no longer matter. So we're going to be looking for rank up and Arthur buff real fast, because by the time she applies a ton of debuffs to us, she's going to get her 50 to even double, 50% to even double base stats, which she easily goes from having 600 health on phase 2 to over 1 million, and it's a little painful. So I did get my rank up. I'm gonna slide this over here, give us rank up, and you want to buff? I'll buff. Make sure we both don't use Arthur buff at the same time. I remember that Lostvayne's single target attack here is going to deal increased damage by 50%. So Lostvayne's single target attack gives you more ult gauge, and anything that gives you more ult gauge is going to deal additional damage to Lilia. In general, all 3 versions of this fight can actually be taken down by a very similar mono red team. It works out just fine. The blue version, you might want to swap up things so that way you're using green Escanors maybe instead of Lostvayne, but you could absolutely just use this exact same team for all 3 difficulty, all 3 versions. As against this green one, this is just clearly easiest. So that attack is a ruin attack. It will purge off your debuffs, which lowers her stats, but also hurts a absolute metric butt ton. And this should kill it. That definitely kills it. We do not have... Wait, do we have ult for phase 2? Because I miscounted. Neither of us have ult. So our Lostvaynes are both going to grab ult here real quick and then ult it on turn 2. Which is fine because it's before she enters her stance. And remember that stances are not triggered by... It shouldn't be triggered by a regular attack. So you should be able to poke her with a regular attack just fine. Yeah, more Arthur buffs? Why not? Attack order doesn't matter. It's not like a Crimson Demon. This fight's over. Now we both have... Or at least I have Lostvayne. Did he get Lostvayne? Yeah. We both got Lostvayne ults. Hit the Lostvayne ult button. And as long as you don't have debuffs on your team, you'll be okay. Just be very, very careful. Remember to make sure you don't have debuffs on your team. It's probably the biggest thing on this fight. Cleanse off debuffs before you attack, so that way her stats are lowered. Use Arthur tier 3, so that way you make sure you actually stay debuff immune. And normally I would recommend against using double Arthurs, but because of how important it is to make sure you actually maintain debuff immunity throughout this fight, having multiple Arthurs is totes fine. Now do it. Alright, yeah, sure, why not? More tier 3s. His Lostvayne's a little bit better than mine, just saying. I only got 2 of 6 Lostvaynes. What a difference. Anyways, guys, that's Green Lilia. I'll make some guides for the other Lilias later on once actually get around to making a team for them. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all stay beautiful.